Smash! The tape recorder was shattered, mangled to bits while the dark silhouette of a slender, tall primate loomed over it. His eyes narrowed as he walked past the body who had guarded him from the tape in the first place. He then held up the cassette tape containing the speech he was listening to. With a whip of his hand, he surrounded the tape with a spherical aura of cyan, and a mist infiltrated the tape, circling the reel until it began playing again. The monkey took threads of the magic out from the orb and brought it to his ears, allowing him to listen to the contents, and then walked out of the room. The dark monkey moved through the castle halls, his long tail swinging back and forth. He walked carefully in the shadows that seemed to cling to the corners of the wide-windowed expanse. Upon the first sign of another approaching, the primate backed into the shadows, his body dematerializing into the dark walls, untouched by the moonlight. A lithe tabby cat padded along, her eyes alert as she turned her gaze to the windows where the dark intruder hid. The primate stilled his breath, closing his eyes to keep the light from reflecting towards the small feline, and remained still. The cat stared a moment longer, and then blinked, her features softening as she continued, unaware of the dangers lurking. The shadow strengthened his form of darkness and kept himself from chuckling at his easy success in remaining hidden. Once she was out of earshot, the being formed his appearance back into that of a spider monkey and scoffed, continuing down the long hall. Each step was silent and deliberate, the animal's eyes scanning every inch of his surroundings until finally turning the corner. Gradually easing closer to his goal, his long tail coiled with anticipation. After a few more steps, he passed an open door and halted upon hearing a small voice. The voice was not speaking. It was simply humming. Curiosity getting the better of him, the spider monkey gazed into the dark room and let a smile ease onto his face upon seeing the sight of another primate. It was a small gray monkey, fluffy and quite tiny. A marmoset. When he recognized the type of monkey it was, his jaw clenched. It must have been shipped here for entertainment. The spider monkey scowled as he watched the tiny creature pull on the golden cuffs of a clown outfit. The shadowy figure narrowed his eyes with disdain as he stepped into the room slowly. The tiny creature turned at the noise, but by the time he squeaked for help, the larger primate yanked him down, throwing him to the floor with his jaw clamped shut by the dark monkey's long tail. "Are you an entertainer for the king?" the dark primate growled, tilting his head. He released his tail's grip around the marmoset's muzzle, which let out a small gasp before tremulously looking up at him. Yes, I'm the jester, sir. Who might you be?" The dark primate ignored the question, arched his brow, and stared down at the smaller monkey as he pulled out one of the magic threads by his ear and asked, "Would you happen to be jesting for the king tonight?" He watched as the marmoset swallowed nervously and answered, "Yes, sir." "Ah, well, that's good." He grinned before he let the shadows of his magic spread across his features. "Unfortunately, your jesting is no longer needed," he sneered as he eased closer to the smaller monkey and drove his fangs down directly against the marmoset's skull. The dark monkey peered down the hall before he exited once more. He licked the blood from his lips with satisfaction. Anyone who might have seen him could have only guessed why. He slowly changed from his natural self with each bold step down the center of the hall into a clothed animal. Step by step, cuff by cuff, by collar by headpiece, he became covered with a jester outfit. First, the outfit was almost a replica of the clown's uniform in style, but his shadows made the costume shift in shape, changing at each pace, until it was a dark, spindly, and sharpened form of brown and umber. The somber outfit fitted itself over the shadowy primate with grace. Next, he formed the metal chimes to the tips of his hat as the final touch to his new outfit. The bright bells turned black as they burst from his cyan magic, dropping with their new size and weight after forming into their solid shape. The monkey grinned with delight at his perfect ensemble. The shadowy jester walked down the hall boldly, letting a mist of cyan color flood from his eyes before it evaporated as he drew closer to his objective. He let out a laugh as he finally approached the double doors leading to the throne room of the castle. "Here we are," he exclaimed to himself. Looking at the towering structure before him, he knew it would be easier to fit through the cat door installed within them than try to open the giant double doors themselves. But where was the challenge in that? He let a noise of delight hiss through his teeth and bound up to the doors. He rose up on his back legs, lifting up gusts of magic in his hands as he did so, until a bursting flash came from between them. The brightness subsided, revealing a floating cube artifact held at the very tips of his fingers, before he propelled it forward at his obstacle. The doors blasted open with a discharge of blue plasma. The primate straightened his posture as he gazed inside the throne room, his eyes bursting with cyan waves that radiated from his irides as he strode into the clearing. Nighthawks and owls flew in the surrounding hall on high alert because of the hostile noise of the explosion. Ground animals rushed out from the castle's rooms to look at the chaotic avian night dwellers. They could see there was a wall of cyan static holding the avians from entering the throne room. The monkey gave a smug look to the chaos behind him, the bells now jingling from his jester hat as he deliberately whipped his head back to the resplendent form in front of him. It was a giant crowned feline, the form and color of the majestic creature distorted in the darkness. He straightened as the monkey looked at him, realizing this was no act of play, and snarled warningly at the smaller being. The primate raised his chin, the cyan flashing a brighter hue upon the giant cat's challenge. "Greetings, my liege. I'm replacing your entertainer for tonight," he called out to the giant feline. The tomcat pressed down his paw in further caution, making the primate continue softly. "I don't want to trouble you with an introduction to myself. It's not really necessary." The monkey smiled as the tom's eyes narrowed. The primate sighed and blinked up at the cat, gesturing out his hand. "You see, I won't really be here long. This act I'm to perform will surely only take a few moments, and seeing as how they'll be your last." His smile broadened as he hissed through his teeth. "I'll get straight to the point." The spider monkey lifted the small crystal cube above his head, glowing with a correspondent hue to the waves emitting from the primate's eyes. The feline growled and cried out for the guards as the dressed primate took another step without fear. The monkey covered his ears at the king's shout. He shook the ringing from his ears, scowling as the bells made their own sound when he pulled back. The mist and waves strengthened into a current surrounding the two. The monkey stamped his hands onto the floor. "I suppose we don't have to pretend," he laughed. The cat lunged in attack. The cube slammed down upon him, bursting with the same plasma which had slammed open the doors, precisely directed against the crowned cat's skull. The explosion from the impact shattered the windows behind the two. Yowls and screeches were heard from outside the throne room, making the primate laugh vehemently as he looked at the scene before him. The cube stayed attached to the cat's head, and the cyan blended and alternated into a red hue, lighting the room with its glow. The monkey smiled down at the limp form of the giant feline, watching the dark liquid of the giant cat's blood pour from beneath the crown, and pressed his hand down on the tom's muzzle. "Hey, stop where you are, Jester!" "Jester?" The monkey narrowed his eyes, his hands whipped upward and around. The colored cube jerked out from the king's skull to follow suit with the primate's movement as he turned to face the guard, shouting. The monkey growled. The cube began glowing with power in tune with the monkey's noise. That was the only warning to the animals outside as the barrier that held them away from the primate evaporated. Without a moment's hesitation, they were blasted away from the doors by the cube. Windows shattered as the red and cyan plasma exploded throughout the room, catching the attention of animals far beyond the surrounding halls. Within the royal throne room, the primate glared with loathing at the scene before him. An ornate crystal heart glowed red, much as the cube had, and emerged from the mist. The primate convulsed at the sight. He went to touch it, but pulled back as his hands split into shadows upon contact. He brought his shadowed hand to the artifact again, but the shadows splintered, ripped up his arm, and shot up to his face. Oh! He flinched, and wincing, pulled the shadows away from his face and arm to solidify into his primate form once more. He stretched out his fingertips in front of him, making sure his appearance was whole, and looked back at the heart, realizing it was the object that caused the damage to his person. He choked out a sound of confusion, then growled, the cyan once again casting out from his eyes.
This is ridiculous!
He lifted his hand and flung down the glass heart in anger, shattering the artifact into pieces and causing an aftershock effect. Animals screeched and panicked as the shards of the heart pierced through the air in another red explosion, shattering walls and other structures as they blasted across the region. It was at that moment the alarm was released outside the castle walls, alerting everyone within earshot of the capital's distress. The bird who announced the call flew across the land, announcing the alarm to the villages, cities, and outskirts with known populations. The small avian flew through the central part of the region until he was certain the message had reached the entire radius of media. One individual, however, remained unaware. At a window of the home of one of the nobility rested a snowshoe cat. The black, white, and taupe feline lay in her windowsill bed, snoring away the sounds of panic and warning.